Secularization is defined as a process where a society slowly transforms from having that close identification with the religious institution to a more separated relationship. In the Philippines, the secularization movement was considered to be the dawn of Philippine nationalism, particularly after the execution of Gomburza. There were two kinds of priests who served the Catholic Church. These were the regulars and the seculars. The regular priests, such as the Franciscans, Recollects, Dominicans, and Augustinians, belonged to religious orders, and their main task was to spread Christianity. The secular priests did not belong to any religious order and were under the supervision of the bishops. They were the Filipinos trained specifically to run the parishes. The conflict began when the bishops insisted on visiting the parishes that were run by the regular priests. The regular priests refused these visits, saying that they were not under the bishop's jurisdiction. Secularism began in 1861 when the Jesuits, who were exiled from the country in 1768 because the Spanish authority disliked certain policies of the order, returned to the Philippines and regained power over the Mindanao parishes from the Recollects who took over during their absence. The colonial government acceded to the laws of the Recollects and presented them the parishes of Manila and Cavite. The Filipino secular priests, the original administrators of the parishes, naturally protested. The secularization movement was headed by the Gomburza, a group named after three Catholic priests, Fathers Mariano Gomez, Jose Apolonio Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, who campaigned for the reform of the Spanish colonial government. The priests were executed through Gobrote in Bagumbayan, Manila, on February 17, 1872, for allegedly initiating the Cavite Mutiny. The Spanish were outraged and the priests were called filibusteros, which literally meant freebooter. The Gomburza advocated the right of the native secular clergy to assignment in the parishes over the newly arrived Spanish friars in the country. The Second Propaganda Movement. Between 1872 and 1892, a national consciousness was growing among the members of the Filipino community. The events that occurred during these years invited the Ilustrados to do something to preserve the Creole ideas. Seeing the impossibility of a revolution against the brutal reign of the Spaniards, convinced the Ilustrados to leave the country to pursue their studies. Their sense of nationalism, coupled with freedom in Europe, saw the beginning of the propaganda movement. The propaganda movement was organized for literary and cultural purposes, more than for political ends, where the propagandists strove to encourage the Spanish to be more aware about the needs of the Philippines and to create a closer and more equal association of the islands and the motherland. The propagandists mainly aimed for the representation of the Philippines in the Cortes Generales, the secularization of the clergy, the legalization of Spanish and Filipino equality, the creation of a public school system independent of the friars, the abolition of the polo y servicio and the vandala, the guarantee of basic freedoms of speech and association, and lastly, equal opportunity for Filipinos and Spanish to enter government service, among others. The movement mostly used literature to campaign for change. They saw the need to create awareness and equip the people with knowledge about the issues. Marcelo H. Del Pilar, Graciano Lopez Haina, and Jose Rizal sounded the trumpets of Filipino nationalism through their writings and oration. Their main work was the La Solidaridad, a newspaper first published on December 13, 1888 at Barcelona. Jose Rizal, a notable figure of the propaganda movement, wrote The Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo. The novels exposed the oppression of the Spaniards and wrote the increasing anti-peninsular sentiments. It did not discourage the people that a revolution was not the solution for independence. Rather, it urged them towards a revolution. This caused Rizal's arrest, which led to an armed resistance against Spanish rule, and eventually the independence of the Philippines. The propaganda movement can be seen as a precursor used by Filipinos in their quest for independence from Spain. The objectives of the second propaganda movement are recognition of the Philippines as a province of Spain, legal equality for both Filipinos and Spaniards, Philippine representation in the Spanish Cortes, secularization of Philippine parishes, recognition of human rights such as free speech and association, and lastly, end to the animal obligation of forced labor. The last movement, or the KKK, aimed to unite the Filipinos into one solid nation and to fight for Philippine independence from Spain. The KKK was a Philippine Revolutionary Society founded along Azcaraga Street in Tondo, Manila, by Filipino patriots Andres Bonifacio, Teodoro Plata, Ladislao Diwa, and others on the night of July 7, 1892, when Jose Rizal, their symbol of freedom, was exiled to Dapitan. The men gathered and performed the ancient blood compact and signed their membership papers with their own blood. It was agreed to win more members to the society by means of a triangle method in which an original member would take in two new members who did not know each other. These aspiring applicants were given standard initiation rites to become members of the society. Also agreed upon the meeting was the payment of an entrance fee of 1 real fuerte, equivalent to 25 centavos, and a monthly due of a media reel, about 12 centavos. At first, the Katipunan was only open for male Filipinos. Not later then, women were accepted in the society. The KKK members agreed on the following objectives. The political goal was to completely separate the Philippines from Spain after declaring the country's independence. The moral goal was to teach the Filipinos good manners, cleanliness, hygiene, fine morals, and how to guard themselves against religious fanaticism. The civic goal was to encourage Filipinos to help themselves and to defend the poor oppressed. A provincial council called the Sangguniang Bayan was established, and in each town was an organized council called Sangguniang Barangay. The towns which supported the Katipunan cause were given symbolic names, such as Magdiwang, to celebrate for Noveleta; Magdalo, to come for Kawit Cavite; Magwagi, to win for Naik; Magtagumpay, to succeed for Maragondon; Walang Tinag, never diminished, to Indang; and Halige, aggregate, for Imos, all of which are provinces of Cavite. Being a secret society, its members are subjected to utmost secrecy and are expected to abide with the rules established by the society. The Katipunan has its own publication, Ang Kalayaan, or the Liberty, that had its first and last print on March 1896. The secret society's existence was revealed to the Spanish authorities after a member named Teodoro Patino confessed Katipunan's illegal activities to his sister, the mother portress of Mandaluyong Orphanage. By the time the society was uncovered, the American writer James Leroy estimated the strength of the Katipunan at 100,000 to 400,000 members. 7 days after the wrong turn of history, on August 26, 1896, Bonifacio and his men tore their cedulas during the infamous cry of Pugadlawin. That started the Philippine Revolution.